Walter placed his hand on Emma's shoulder, pulling her close as the man in the jacket stopped a few steps away. The man's face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, like knives looking for weakness. "Do I know you?" Walter asked, his voice steady. The man smiled faintly. "Not yet. But I know you." He glanced at Emma, then back at Walter. "You're on a journey. A road filled with old memories. Be careful, old man. Some memories are best left buried." Emma shivered. She squeezed Walter's hand so tight that her knuckles turned white. Walter stood tall, though his bones ached. "Come, Emma," he said softly. "We're leaving." The man didn't stop them, but his gaze followed as they got into the car. When the engine roared to life, Walter pressed the pedal hard. The lake grew smaller in the rear mirror, but the shadow of the man's warning grew larger in Walter's mind. Emma looked up at him. "Grandpa, why was he saying that? What does he want?" Walter's eyes narrowed. "I don't know yet, but I'll find out. For now, we must keep going." Emma leaned back in her seat, hugging the flowers she had picked earlier. She whispered a small prayer under her breath. She didn't know who the man was, but she could feel something heavy in his words. Something dangerous. The road stretched long, and the night began to crawl in. Walter kept his eyes on the road, but his heart pounded with the echo of Clara's voice. "Walter, protect her." The next morning, Walter parked the car in front of a little church with a crooked bell tower. The paint on the walls had faded, but the building still stood tall, holding memories inside. "This is where Clara and I got married," Walter said, his voice shaking between joy and sorrow. "She wore a dress so simple, but she looked like a queen. I thought my heart would burst from loving her." Emma smiled, trying to imagine it. "Did she laugh when you said your vows?" Walter chuckled. "She laughed because I forgot my lines. She whispered them to me so I could finish. That was Clara. Always saving me." They walked inside, and the air smelled of wood and dust. The pews were empty, but Walter could almost hear the old organ playing. He sat down, lost in the memory. Emma sat beside him, but her eyes kept drifting to the stained glass window. The light shone red and blue across the floor, but there was something else: footsteps. Slow, careful footsteps. Emma turned her head quickly. The man in the jacket stood at the door, watching them again. Walter rose, his cane tapping against the wooden floor. "Why are you following us?" he demanded. The man didn't answer at once. He only smiled and said, "I told you, old man. Not every story should be dug up. Some truths can break more than hearts." Emma's chest grew tight. She wanted to run, but Walter's hand held her steady. He looked at the man and said, "If you think you can scare me away from Clara's memories, you're wrong. This road is ours." The man's smile faded, and his eyes turned cold. "We'll see." Then, just as quietly as he had entered, he left. Emma looked at Walter, her voice trembling. "Grandpa, who is he? How does he know about Grandma?" Walter closed his eyes. A storm was rising in his heart. "I don't know, Emma. But I fear he knows more than I wish he did." That evening, Walter drove to a small diner at the edge of a town. Neon lights flickered on the sign, and the smell of fried chicken filled the air. Emma's stomach growled, and Walter laughed softly. "This was Clara's favorite stop," he said. "She loved the peach pie here. She said it tasted like summer." They went inside, and the waitress, an older woman with silver hair, gasped when she saw Walter. "Walter? Is that you?" Walter blinked. "Margie?" The woman hurried over, hugging him. "Oh, it's been years. You and Clara. I remember you both like it was yesterday." Emma watched with wide eyes as the two old friends spoke. Margie brought them plates of food, free of charge, and even a slice of peach pie. Walter's eyes grew watery when he tasted it. But then, the bell above the door rang. The man in the jacket stepped inside, his presence heavy as a storm cloud. Margie's smile faded as she noticed him. She leaned closer to Walter and whispered, "Be careful. That man, he asked too many questions about Clara." Walter froze. "He's been here?" Margie nodded. "He came some weeks ago, asking about your wife. Asking about you." Emma gripped her fork tightly. She felt the air turn colder. The man in the jacket ordered nothing. He simply sat at the corner table, eyes fixed on them like a hawk. Walter pushed his plate away. "Emma, finish up. We need to keep moving." Emma nodded, but her hands shook. She didn't want to eat anymore. The pie that had once tasted sweet now felt bitter on her tongue. By the next morning, Walter and Emma were on the road again. The highway cut through fields and woods, but Walter's thoughts stayed dark. He couldn't shake the man's words. Some truths can break more than hearts. Emma sat quietly, staring out the window. "Grandpa," she said softly, "do you think Grandma had a secret?" Walter's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He wanted to say no, but the shadow in his heart told him not to lie. Maybe. Everyone has secrets. But Clara's love was real. That's all that matters. Emma turned to him. "Then why is that man following us?" Walter sighed. "Because he wants to turn memories into weapons. But we won't let him." Suddenly, the car began to rattle. Smoke hissed from the hood. Walter pulled over quickly. They were stranded on a lonely stretch of road. Emma's heart raced. "Grandpa, what do we do?" Walter grabbed his cane and stepped out. "Stay inside, Emma." But before he could open the hood, another car pulled up. It was the man in the jacket. He stepped out slowly, his face calm but dangerous. "Need help?" he asked. Walter's jaw clenched. "We don't need anything from you." The man leaned closer. "You're chasing ghosts, Walter. But do you even know the truth about Clara? Do you know what she left behind?" Emma's breath caught. Walter froze, his heart pounding. The man's words were like stones thrown into a calm lake, breaking everything in their path. What truth was he talking about?